Joining us now, we have Mark Furnish, who's a criminal defense lawyer here in the studio. Good to see you again. And we have Heather Hanson, who's a criminal defense attorney as well. Nice to have you here in the studio as well. You know, it was very interesting listening to some of this early testimony in the morning as they were beginning to interview the first witness of the day, a woman who claims that she, I mean, not claims, but she says that she was obviously privy to hearing noise and a scuffle, and it was rainy, it was dark. She was very, you know, clear about what she thought she saw and heard. And she brought up the fact that she could actually tell whose voice it was. She claimed that she could tell who was George Zimmerman, who was Trayvon Martin. She could even tell who, that she said that she felt it was Zimmerman on top of Martin. And she called 911, and they played a very emotional 911 tape for everyone to hear. It was interesting because the prosecution was trying to build her up as a very credible witness who could, you know, give the facts as she understood, as she saw them, the evidence as she saw it, and then under cross-examination, they were able to chip away at her credibility, which I thought was very interesting in the way that it was done. What are your thoughts, Heather, in the way that was portrayed?
I thought that the defense did a wonderful job on cross-examination today. I think that all of your points are correct. You know, she, even on direct, she gave the defense some points. You know, the fact that it was pouring rain, I think that's going to be important in the future. We've heard some testimony, I think yesterday, that it was drizzling. And later, when we're talking about DNA evidence in blood, that pouring rain testimony may become very important. But on cross-examination, I mean, she really did give up quite a bit. I think it was important to note that she testified on direct that the window was open, and in the 911 call she said, "I'll open the window," and so there's definitely some discrepancy there. You know, there are studies, Uma, that show that ear witness as opposed to eyewitnesses are far less reliable.
Yes.
And her reliability, I think, was diminished the more and more she went through cross-examination.
I mean, Mark, they were saying, first of all, you've never heard Trayvon Martin's voice before, you never heard George Zimmerman's voice before, and yet you make the assumption, using that word, the assumption, that you know who's who. And she had to admit that she never had spoken to either one of them before, had heard their voices before. So that really, you know, put a, you know, real big, you know, doubt in the minds of jurors in terms of, planted the seeds of doubt at least, about what she had said to this point.
Well, as you said, they were able to chip away at the basis of her knowledge and the foundation for her assumptions. But what you can't get around, really, is the fact that she testified pretty unequivocally that the voice was high and that she thought it was that of a boy. Now, there's two explanations for that. You don't have to know what his voice sounded like that to know if it sounds like a high voice or that of a boy. So there's at least two potential explanations for that. One, it could be a man's voice, heightened in pitch by the stress of an exciting event, or that it's the voice of a younger person. And that has, the latter assumption has visceral and intuitive appeal to it, no matter how heavily they chip away at the basis of knowledge.
But on the other hand, he did bring up, you know, talked about puberty. He talked about the fact that a boy's voice changes. We all know that is basic common knowledge for most people who take a health class or whatever. And she seemed very defensive and very upset that she was being challenged in this way. And she seemed very dismissive of those questions when she was being asked, you know, do you have knowledge that a boy's voice does change in puberty?
And that's the exact type of thing that the jury is focused on. At the end of the case, when they get the charge, they're going to hear that it's up to them to determine the witness's credibility based on their tone and their body language and all of those types of things. So her defensiveness, I think, could hurt her entire testimony. The other thing that's interesting is this morning the judge ruled, and we may get to this later, that those 911 calls are going to get in. When you listen to those calls, Zimmerman actually has a pretty high voice. And so that could actually be helpful in the future to hear, you know, for her to assume that it's a boy's voice, given the puberty thing, given the high pitch of Zimmerman's voice, I think that the jury may have some questions about that.
I want to get to those 911 calls in just a moment, but first I want to play some sound from the 911 call that Ms. Sudaika made the night of the incident, and she was very emotional and hysterical practically, and they had to really calm her down. But I want you folks to hear what she described as in terms of what she saw that night and how it compares with her testimony today. So let's listen to the 911 call, please.
Oh my God, he shot the person. He just said he shot the person.
Who's saying they shot who?
And the people out there, a guy is raising his hands up. He's saying he shot a person. I think it's a police officer that's with him right now. Arrest us. Oh my God, why was it going to be
It looks like our officer is there. He has somebody at gunpoint.
Yeah.
They're gonna handle the situation from here.
Oh my God.
It's
I want to be shot.
It's probably gonna be best if you stay inside your home for the time being, okay?
I know, but I can't believe someone is killed. You were saying help. Why didn't someone come out and help them?
Listen, we don't know if they've been killed, okay? We know they've probably...
He just said he shot him. Yes, the person is